Hello, my name is Noel Bell. I'm a psychotherapist in London and I run these podcast interview series. And today I'm delighted to have Louise Mazanti, all the way from Denmark. So from Brexit country to the European Union. Good morning. Louise is a sex therapist and trained as a psychosynthesis psychotherapist and specialized in psychosexual somatics therapy, PST. She is trained in energy psychology, esoteric wisdom, and she has studied integral philosophy and shamanism, all of which informs her contemporary work. Louise is currently in Denmark. That's where she grew up. She has two sons. She's married. She's featured on Channel 5 in the UK, so she might be a familiar face to some people as the expert for the factual entertainment show Make or Break. She is also co-author of the book Real Sex, Why Everything You Learned About Sex Is Wrong, published by Hay House in May 27, with her husband, Mike Lousada. Louise, good morning. Did we leave anything out there?
No, it was a brilliant introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the first question I had for you, apart from how you are, is what attracted you to transpersonal psychotherapy, and I guess the integrative approach, and why specifically psychosynthesis?
Actually, I didn't know I was attracted to psychotherapy. It was more the transpersonal, to be honest. So this whole journey into this identity and the person that I am now started with, I was in a very different place in my life. I was a professor in humanities, in art and design. I was at the top of my career. I just turned 35, and I had reached kind of all the academic goals that I could ever dream of, and kind of even more. And then I just started feeling increasingly empty inside and thinking, what am I doing? Everything that I've been working so hard for is simply not making me happy. I feel empty inside. And I had really put every achievement on my wall that I could. So it was like, I can't find any new goals that are going to make me happy. And I started questioning what I was doing. And at the same time, I had a spiritual awakening. It just came kind of out of nowhere. I had some dreams, I had some experiences that just told me, like, there's something more that you need to figure out what it is. And this took me into, oh my God, what is this kind of spirituality? And what is happening to me? And because I was an academic, I thought, I need to figure it out. I need to know what it's about. And I can't just go into this kind of woo-woo hippie spiritual thing. I didn't know what it was, but I had a lot of prejudice. So I started seeing a therapist, and I started talking about these spiritual experiences, and I just realized that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to understand myself from a grounded and knowledge-based perspective, and I wanted to kind of facilitate that transition, that change in life for others as well. So that's why it drew me to psychotherapy. It was partly through my own experience of my own therapy and feeling what I'm going through feels so rewarding and so important that I want to do that for other people. It was really a desire to share my own experience and say, I discovered something that's so amazing. Come and try it. Let me facilitate.
So that clearly led to what the passion that you currently have for the way you work.
Absolutely. I mean, the place that I work from, mentally, spiritually, is everything is running through me. Everything that I'm facilitating in my work is something that is already running in me, that I feel. I work from this very, very felt experience of life, of myself, of psyche, of spirit. And that's kind of the place that I access in my client work. It's not like I put on a cap of, now I'm a therapist. I have this kind of, I want to say, holistic approach that all of me is there. And of course, I hold a very professional boundary in my work, but it's running through me. It's from what I know. It's not just from what I studied. It's from my experience. That's kind of the place that I facilitate transformative processes for my client is from what's alive in me at the same time.
Yeah, just that, as you're saying that, I just remember a tutor when we were finishing at my training say, the best therapists will be the ones who can just be themselves.
Yeah.
Not the ones who can adopt the best therapy pose.
Yes.
Or quote the best theory or...
Yeah. Actually, that was a piece of advice I had from my supervisor quite early on in my professional career, because I used to be an academic and I felt like I need to get it right. I was trying so hard to get it right. And he said, why don't you just be yourself? And that was such a shift for me in my work, because I started enjoying it. And I started feeling, whoa, this makes sense. I can be me. And working from that flow really changed my practice. It really made all the difference from being like just one mainstream therapist to offering and facilitating exactly what I can do. So for me, it's a simple thing to say, why don't you just be you? But it really made a big difference.
Yes, but going through therapy school, there's the perennial questions, false self, real self. Did you find it particularly difficult to be yourself?
As a therapist or in life?
Well, just in life, yeah.
That's an ongoing inquiry. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And is that really me? How much can I bring? How is this going to translate into professional practice? And I'm on my own personal journey. And of course, that also translates into my work. And it's an ongoing question. I'd say, like, who am I? What kind of therapy do I offer? What kind of people do I want to work with? What are the journeys that I'm good at taking people on? That's an ongoing question. And so this being myself is not like an end goal. Now I'm myself.
Yeah.
You mentioned briefly that I was in this TV show, and it's a reality show. And I was, if I may talk about that a little bit.
Yes, sure.
So I was a sex expert in this reality TV show. And of course, that was a huge kind of challenge to my professional identity. Like, okay, how am I gonna do therapy on screen where people don't want to be vulnerable, and when there's no time for that, and when it's about entertainment? So again, I talked to my supervisor and he said, just play with it. Just take your therapy cap off and play a role. And that was so freeing, because that allowed more of me to actually be there, not just my therapy identity, but more of me. So it was actually, even though it sounds like it was very restrictive to be in this kind of setting, it was really freeing, because it just allowed me to express more of myself, to express more sub-personalities, if you'd like, just different parts of myself. So in a way, I'm never one person. There's so many things I can bring that I'm always trying to be sensitive to what do I want to bring now, what's appropriate, and what am I enjoying, what makes sense, what feels true for me, what feels authentic. And sometimes being really playful and playing a role is also authentic, because I'm playing. And I think sometimes as therapists, we need to free ourselves a little bit from these boxes and just be what feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes, well, I don't know whether I speak for myself, but we can tend to be so mindful of ethical frameworks and what's considered good, safe practice, that the risk is that we don't take any risks, and that we become too safe.
Yeah, it's a very fine line. And for me, especially because I'm working in the field of intimacy and sexuality.
Yeah.
Of course, ethical boundaries need to be super tight and safe, of course. So I have to be very aware of what is what is a safe container, and how much of myself can I bring? And that's always something I have to be very mindful of, but not letting these safety structures and this I'm just a therapist, I'm removed from this. Not let that stand in the way, because that stands in the way for the personal interaction that is actually where the therapy is happening. So it's always this balance, this dance of how much can I bring to myself, how much is right to bring, what is right in a therapeutic dynamic.
Yeah, so I guess at that point is probably a good point to talk about your book. You've co-written a book with your husband, Mike Lousada, who, and it's called Sex, as we said at the start. Let me just look back at my notes. Real Sex, Why Everything You Learned About Sex is Wrong. And you describe being love revolutionaries. So what is a love revolutionary?
A love revolutionary is the way we make sense of who we are as a couple, as a professional couple, offering this work to the world. We make sense of it in the term of sex is not just about sex. Sex is about intimacy. It's about how we connect with each other. And so much of what's going wrong in the world is simply because we don't know how to connect. Mm-hmm. We're so afraid of each other. We're afraid of being real. We are afraid of being authentic. We are afraid of being vulnerable. And then sexually, we just go into performance, or we go into this is what we learned sex is supposed to look like. We overstep our own boundaries. We don't feel ourselves simply because we don't slow down and feel connect. So the revolution that we want to bring is to simply reframe what is sex. And it's not just an act, it's not a performance, all these kind of mental ideas that we have about sex, but it's actually about connection. It's about love. It's about how we interact with each other. That doesn't mean that sex has to be in a long-term relationship with someone you love, etc. But it's about creating a space of love and connection in the moment. And that's what we want to challenge and say, that's what sex is about. And that is what sex can be about in every kind of encounter. So really kind of forget about what you learned about sex and feel it. And feel it from an authentic place. Feel it from with all the vulnerability and all the desire and all the everything that is you in the moment. So it's kind of teach people from anew to discover what is sex, what does it feel like, what is running through your body, what wants to express, instead of thinking, what is the other one expecting, what am I supposed to, or what can I give myself permission to do, all these kind of mental constructs. Just come back to the felt experience. That's mainly what the love revolution is about. It's coming back to the felt experience and coming back to connection.
Yeah, because invariably, a lot of the people we help have got a lot of shame about sex, maybe brought up with a shaming environment around what is healthy sex. Often sex is not a topic that's discussed around the dinner table or around the TV. Yeah. It's the newspaper gets shaken when mommy and daddy, or when there's a sex scene that comes on and the paper goes up. Or so to be expressive and open about sex is the healthy thing. In today's day and age, though, around the proliferation of porn and sleaze, when you are so open as a woman, as an attractive woman, and as a couple, do you attract your fair share of pervs or people who are just latching on to some other projection that they're seeking, or how does that work?
I mean, it's always there. As a woman, it's always there. But I'd say I'm very clear in the energy that I'm giving off. I'm not shying away from who I am, but I'm not making that energy available to anyone. So it's very much about giving myself permission to be the sexual woman that I am, like everyone is. But just knowing what are my boundaries. Being just very clear in my boundaries of this is when I want to open, this is when I want to keep the boundary. And a lot of the work that I do with women, I'm very passionate about women's empowerment and women's ownership of their sexuality, is simply about knowing our boundaries, knowing when we say no, and knowing when we say yes. Because women today are so confused about all these sexual messages of, oh, you have to want sex all the time, you have to be available and hot and juicy and blah, blah, blah. But equally, also, you're not supposed to want it. You have to be a good girl. And you're only supposed to want it if you're in a long-term relationship and with the same person, etc. So there's so many rules about our sexuality. And it's just really important for women, for men as well, but it's a different journey, but to reclaim that I own my sexuality. I'm totally in charge of it. And I decide what's right for me from moment to moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that point, I interviewed Mary Deach, who's the president of SASH in America, and she made the point that it's very important for every individual to have their own definition of what is a healthy sexuality for them. Because when we, in the sex therapy field, I guess, we can potentially be accused of being sex negative, that we're being judgmental about what is lifestyle choices versus what could maybe be considered problem behavior. So the case in point maybe is, if couples swing, some couples will say, it's a lifestyle choice. We're cool with it. We're having fun. For you, what determines whether something is problem behavior versus healthy lifestyle choices?
I'm very passionate about this question. So it's a good question. And there's so much to say in terms of, it's not just about what's a healthy lifestyle choice, because I can make the choice about my sexuality that, okay, this is the boundaries that we are agreeing to, this is what we're doing, we're swinging, or we're doing this or that. And it can feel good or it can create friction. But my definition of what is healthy is what's happening inside. So, but it's not as simple as that, because we can have sexual experiences that we want to have, but somewhere inside we are also holding a judgment about it. And this judgment is passed on to us by our parents, by society, by our culture, religion, etc., which means that we are actually not free to enjoy our sexuality. So even though we are going swinging or what we're doing and we want to enjoy it, there's a part of us that's feeling guilt. And that part is going to play up. And that part is often playing up also in the relationship. So it's not as simple as to say, oh, I feel pressure to do this in my relationship, and we pretend we're happy with it, but we're not. But it's also to question, why am I not happy with this? Am I not giving myself permission to enjoy something that I actually want to enjoy? Or is it that this is simply not my thing? And if it is simply not your thing, it's so important to keep that boundary.
Yeah.
And I think so many people allow their boundaries to be overstepped, or they compromise where they actually don't want to compromise in sex. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching people to be able to say yes and to be able to say no. To say yes means to be free of the internal guilt and judgment that we are holding about our sexual desires. So we feel we can't say yes to things we wish we could say yes to. But equally important to be able to say no. This is not my, this is the boundary of my body. And that's a complicated dynamic to manage in a couple.
Yeah.
Because two people that have their yes and no, they have to manage, and the expectations on each other, and compromising the relationship, wanting to be cool, etc. So if I want many couples that I speak to that are in this inquiry, I say it's so important to be communicating clearly. And it comes back to real sex, the title of our book, to be real, to be authentic with your experience. So not pretend. This is the worst poison for a good sexual relationship and for intimacy, is not to be authentic.
Yeah.
So it's really coming back to your own felt experience and saying, this is what's going on. I can feel a desire to do this. I can feel the no. I can feel the yes. And keep that inquiry open instead of, this is how I am. So coming back to being authentic in each moment. And I would say that's the healthy sexuality.
Yeah.
That allow yourself to question all the time, ongoing question, how am I feeling? How is this working for me? So it's not a yes or a no, or we have this agreement and that's what we do. That's not healthy. It's healthy to stay in an open connection to yourself and always inquire, where are my boundaries today? They might be different tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we have a few prepared questions, and I have a list of them which I've sent you. But I think sometimes the best questions come up just as I'm listening, and just.
Yeah.
And one that's just popped into my head is, I mean, I have clients who have in the past come along and said to me, both genders, but probably more likely men, maybe. Who just say, healthy sexuality for them, yes, it probably should include commitment. Yes, it should include monogamy. But sex with strangers is just so exciting. What do you think about that view? And does that fit into a model of real sex?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Because when people share this very understandable excitement, I'd say that's natural. First of all, we simply need to stop the judgment of the boxes that society puts on our sexuality and say, of course that's exciting.
Mm.
If you've been in the same relationship for however many years, it's gonna be exciting to fantasize, to engage the senses, to kind of experience that stimulation. Natural. So not make the desire wrong.
Mm.
What does that mean to your relationship? How can you bring this excitement back into your relationship?
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? That's the work.
That's what we want. It's not that people come and say, oh, this is really working for me. It's mostly they come because something is not working for them.
Yes.
So saying, what is the quality of that excitement or that meeting with strangers? What is it that's being reflected back to me? What am I experiencing about myself in that encounter that I'd also like to bring to my relationship?
Yeah.
And we find that together. So it's so important. It's a kind of the backbone of how I work, is always to look at the quality that's behind and never make a natural sexual impulse wrong. But simply see what's the quality of it, how can we work with it, how can we work towards integration, towards bringing all of this where you want to take it.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, I'm always mindful that sex and is such a part of survival. We forget this sometimes. Maybe it's just so imprinted, ingrained in us, and our need to affiliate is all associated with sex. So, hence, dating apps and sex on the internet generally, and how in various manifestations. That's why I think it's so powerful. Do you want to just say a few things about the exciting projects you're involved in with Mike? You know, the opportunities that are being presented by the American institutes.
So Mike and I, we launched our joint website 4 or 5 months ago. So we had 2 individual practices. We still have that, but we've got now a joint website and a joint brand, because what we're offering is, as I said, it's what I do in my work is running through me. It's running through my own experience, and that's very much informed by my relationship.
Yeah.
So Mike and I, we work from that place. It's like our life informs our work. So we wrote this book together, and it grew out of our professional practice, and it also grew out of psychosexual somatics that Mike developed, but it really grew out of our own personal experience with each other, and being 2 therapists speaking kind of the same language.
Yes.
On the same journey, being equally committed to our personal and spiritual growth, and say, wow, what's happening here? How can we put this into a structured and very simple form? We developed 7 key concepts to having real sex, and that's where it grew out of. So we put the book out, and we got invited to teach in Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California, which is now the 3rd year that we're going to teach there, which is one of the world's hot houses for personal development, for body work, and for this consciousness. And that's what we're really interested in, being in these places where is the evolutionary edge right now of consciousness in our planet. That's what we're interested in. That's where we feel ourselves. So Esalen opened up. Another really exciting opportunity on the East Coast is opening up. So the US is really opening up to us. The TV work that I did in the UK is also was really successful, and I enjoyed it a lot. So of course I hope there's going to be more opportunity there. And we're running the professional psychosexual somatics therapy professional training. That's a 1-year training, and we're running it in the UK, and it seems like we will be running it in the US too. So that's also opening up. We're teaching in Russia, in Ukraine, in the US, different places in Europe. So the professional teaching is also opening up. So it's like there's many platforms that are moving right now, which is really exciting.
How exciting. And so for therapists listening, watching, who want to develop their skills as part of the CPD program, they should just probably Google your name and Mike's name, and you'll find the joint website.
Yes, and we also have a website for psychosexual somatics that is just called psychosexualsomatics.com. And that's all about the professional training about this therapeutic modality. So if people are really interested in that, they can also Google that.
Great. And anyone who's struggling personally with their sexuality, whether it's a behavioral issue or as you had alluded to earlier, internal conflicts, I guess as therapists, we would say, go and find a therapist. But
yeah. And both Mike and I have our private practices, so we also do some client work, and that's just on our joint website, mazantilousada.com.
Yes. And just finally, how easy did you find that you developed a private practice after you finished? I don't know what your expectations were when you were going through the training, but I've often experienced, like there's a sort of mindset that thinks clients are going to come and knock on the door and you're going to have a full practice within a few weeks, and the institute that you train should send you loads of referrals, and all your colleagues should send you lots of people.
Yeah.
Invariably, it's kind of hard work, isn't it? You're responsible for developing a business, and you're doing all the marketing, and you're taking responsibility. And how has that journey been for you?
I'd say that while I was studying, I was so busy with surviving the whole process that I wasn't really thinking I'm going to make a living afterwards, because it's intensive to do psychotherapy training, because you've got to go all through your own stuff yourself. So I was really embedded in that, and I enjoyed it, and it was hard work. But what I really found was that the more clear I was with who I am, what I have to offer, what I am passionate about, the more I was able to go out into the world with that energy, with that confidence, saying, this is what is important. And I do think that because I had such a solid professional identity from my career as a professor, and I was really used to speaking to people, I was used to being an expert. So that was still in me. So I'd say it's also a real matter of confidence and how to communicate who you are and finding your flow. Like my flow is working with sexuality, intimacy, transformation, women's empowerment, etc. And the more I got clear with that, I think the more the clients came, and the more the clients started referring in their networks, and it built it up. So that's one thing that I want to say, that it's just so important to find your flow, because then you're able to communicate authentically and people can feel it. If you're trying too hard, people are just going to back off and say, So that's one part of it. And also, of course, I was so fortunate to be in relationship with someone that had a really thriving practice already. So of course, that was also a part of the way in for me, was that my husband started referring clients that he felt I would be better working with, or he couldn't see, that he started referring to me. So, and I know that that's just my own fortunate luck to be in that position. But I what is really important for me to say is that the more I got clear with who I am, the more my practice started to flow.
Yes, well, it's very refreshing to see practitioners in this field be bold and, taking risks personally, professionally, and making a go of it. And I wish you all very success. I'm sure there'll be more books and more TV work and more courses, and hopefully we'll speak again sometime in the future, if you can fit me into your busy schedule when there's, I don't know, when you're in the Hollywood Hills. I don't know whether is that where you aspire to, metaphorically maybe.
Let's see. I won't complain.
Okay. Well, it's been a joy to chat, and thank you for taking the time to explain your work. And I'm sure people will find you if they need to, if they resonate with your work. And so thanks again, Louise, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.